think I'm going to start a new series that I'm going to call Confessions of a Shoujo Otaku, where I talk about some of my experiences as a manga collector and shoujo anime watcher from the time of the original Sailor Moon Geek dub when I was about 7 up until the present. So, while I talk about my first shoujo otaku confession, I will flip through the 20th anniversary art book of one of my favorite mangaka, Arina Tanemura. So, she has written Full Moon Osagashite and Kamikaze Kaito Jin and Idle Dreams, Mistress Fortune, The Gentleman's Alliance Cross, Sakura Himekaden, / The Legend of Princess Sakura, as well as a few others. So the first major shoujo otaku confession I want to make is that in the early stages of YouTube, in the very beginning of YouTube, 2005, I want to say all the way up to 2010, I was a very avid, what you would call AMV maker, which is an anime music video. I would spend days, sometimes even weeks, creating my videos. I used to go by the username on YouTube of Mini Moon Girl. Once a video would be up, I would be so excited to come home from school. I was in high school by the time YouTube was created. I would be so excited to come home from school and see comments and see how people had reacted to my videos. I was known at that time for being a very lyrics focused video maker. You know, I didn't have the greatest AMV making software in the world, right? So I used to use what's called Sony Vegas, which I don't know if it's in use anymore. And my main anime of choice, which should be no surprise to anyone, was the original 90s Sailor Moon anime, including the original Geek dub, as well as later the Cloverway seasons. And so that would be my main anime couple, were of course Usagi and Mamo-chan. When I first started YouTube, I still referred to them as Serena and Darian, and then eventually I watched the 5th season, got used to calling them by their Japanese names. Another anime I would feature a lot in my videos was Phantom Thief Jin, Kamikaze Kaito Jin, as well as Full Moon. I would occasionally do anime mixes, which would include several animes in one video, but it was typically Sailor Moon, but you could find in any given video I would do Kamikaze Kaito Jin, because I would do Manon and Chiaki. You could find Mitsuki and Takuto from Full Moon in my videos. I would even occasionally do a video for the characters of The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. I would do the occasional Ouran High School Host Club AMV, but the AMVs that are still nearest and dearest to my heart were always Sailor Moon AMVs and Kamikaze Kaito Jin AMVs, and of course Full Moon Sagashite AMVs. And there are still anime AMVs that are near and dear to my heart that I watched from other creators that have never left my mind. there was one particular one for Bakura ga Ita, which someone else had made, the anime We Were There, which also has a great manga. And the video was to a song called May I by a band called Trading Yesterday. Still one of the most beautiful songs, and in my opinion, one of the greatest AMVs to ever exist on YouTube. And so a lot of creative people existed on YouTube at that time, and I feel like a lot of those people probably went on to be some sort of video editors, right? And so I really loved that time of early, by today's standards, very early social media. I think personally for me, I only remember one instance of like a mean-spirited comment that bordered a little bit on hateful, which was because I am Puerto Rican and I do love music in Spanish as well, I would occasionally make videos for my favorite Spanish songs at the time. And I remember I made a video for a popular Spanish song of the late O's called Tengo un Amor, which is still one of my favorite videos I ever made to this day. And I got one or two comments that said things along the lines of, oh, keep anime Asian. Why would you use a Spanish song and these are Asian characters? But literally in all the years that I made videos, which was about 5 years, it was 2 comments on that one video. And that was like the only sort of bullying, hateful comments that I ever experienced at the time. To this day, for old time's sake, I do have a lot of my favorite videos still saved on my computer. I even found and resurrected one and used a small snippet of it to celebrate the Honor to Us All trend from a few months ago, earlier in the summer. And AMV making back then was special, and I do see the occasional video edits on socials, especially on TikTok occasionally, that remind me of AMVs from back in the day in the best way. I never made a Linkin Park AMV for one of their very popular songs at the time, but I did make one for the Nickelback song that goes, "There's Gotta Be Somebody for Me." It was a Shugokara AMV because I loved that anime back then, and I was one of those people who would search for hours for Shugokara content and wait for Crunchyroll subs, which weren't, you know, a mega popular thing back then. Like, it was for the fans by the fans. So I did make a lot of Shugokara videos as well. But AMV making in the early days of YouTube was very special, and I'm glad I was a part of the anime loving culture back then and otaku culture back then. And some of the videos I saw and creators that I was friendly with, I will never forget some of the creations, and I think that's very special.